Okay, June, just a second, babe. Yeah, we're gonna feed baby. Baby's gonna get some food. Yeah, let's get you some food. Listen. Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Yeah. Hey, baby. Okay. Just a moment, baby.
Oh, I think I know what's happening. I think my headset's still on.
How do we turn that off? Well, that's awkward. That is awkward. Can anyone hear me yet? How do we fix this? Oh dear. Well, this is embarrassing. No, can you hear me now? Please tell me you can hear me now. Yes? Yes? Okay. Still hear me? Hopefully? Yes? Maybe? Good? Okay. All right. That was awkward. I didn't realize at first that people couldn't hear me, but apparently I did not realize this laptop was connected to a Bluetooth headset in the other room. That was unexpected. Okay. That's cool. Technology. Um Yeah, apparently it was being used yesterday and was never desynced. And I had no idea. So that's fun. So there was just like 3 minutes of me just mouthing words that no one could hear. All right, so let's take this from the top. Greetings, Ranger fans, and welcome to yet another installment of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where I go through a retrospective, commenting on my classic Database Rangers Power Reviews episodes as we count down to the eventual 100th and final episode. Tonight we are on our 10th commentary, so 10% of the way there. Okay. Wow. That was so awkward. And the thing was, I had navigated over to the comments to read off some questions, so I didn't see the chat at first, so I was extra delayed. So, with all that said, to actually quickly answer the questions I was answering before, Sean had been asking if MJ was, with MJ now watching RJ, would they still continue to watch Power Rangers even though they're not going to be in the videos? Yes, I will continue watching Power Rangers with MJ, just not on camera because we were looking to not have our infant child be featured on this YouTube channel. Although apparently we auditorially just did that. Okay. Good to know. Alright, so to answer another question from Hayden was with regards to when I was talking about what I'm thinking about for the Power Rangers Dino Fury reviews. When I did say that I was looking at something collaborative, I'm not looking at something that's collaborative with subscribers, but actually with another channel. And I do have some other plans down the way for other things that are going to be collaborative with other channels. There may be, other things that I can do that are collaborative with subscribers in the future. But as far as the ideas that I was floating earlier, those are collaborations with other channels. So I'm glad I'm able to clarify that. And then, although I don't have too much time to address it, I did get this this third question that I wanted to at least address briefly, because as we've established, we do our 3 non-controversial phrases at the beginning and our 3 non-controversial phrases at the end of each of these live streams. And DigiDestined was wondering if we could add communism and socialism to the list alongside fascism. And I'm going to say that I don't intend to do that, and I want to clarify a few reasons why. One is just that I'm looking to keep things simple, 3 to 5 word phrases, and adding additional ideologies onto that would stretch out the phrases. I also don't already have a sign made up featuring the others, so it's convenient to use the sign. But on a more meaningful level, it comes down to the definitions of the terms. Fascism, by definition, is an ideology that is always damaging, to the extent that even people who subscribe to fascist ideologies still will deny doing so. As opposed to socialism and communism, which have a far broader range of definitions. And they're often interchangeable with one another. And the ways that they're used colloquially is very different. And it can range from, the actual genuine theory, which is something that is largely in the political theory realm. There's the ways that certain governments have presented those ideologies, which have really been within an authoritarian model, in which case it is very damaging, as are most things when presented within an authoritarian model. And then there's other things like how people identify as communists or socialists and how they identify others as communists or socialists. So, for instance, someone from the right may accuse someone of being a communist for trying to return to the marginal tax rate of the 90s, which makes no sense. Or someone who identifies themselves as a socialist may be simply looking for universal health care, which is really more in fitting with the social democracies that follow the Nordic model out in Europe. So considering those broad ranges of ideologies, some of which can be very damaging when delivered inside an authoritarian model, and others are considered by the large majority of Americans to actually be positive things, like healthcare or social programs. I feel like painting them all with the broad brush of saying, oh, these are both bad, would be overly reductionist, and take far too much time if I wanted to accurately represent the non-controversial aspects of the ideologies. So clearly those don't quite fit under the brief, non-controversial representations I'm looking for. So I know that was a little bit of a tangent there, and I think that's a good lead-in to our 3 non-controversial phrases that we are still committing to, because these are things that we should all be able to agree on just at a pure, like, human level. So, number 1, say it with me, chat. Black lives matter. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Fascism is bad. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Superheroes are fun. And we've already spent too much time going over too many things. Let's get into some superheroes. Let's get over into me discussing superheroes with the 10th episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews. The review of Power Rangers Super Samurai Episode 2. Which was there, and now I gotta navigate over to it. What is happening? Why is it going backwards? There we go. Whoop, whoop, whoa, oh, no, that is not what I'm clicking on. Stop, no. Oh dear, I've clicked on myself reviewing this. How did that happen? That one. The actual. Previously on. Oh, that beautiful sound. Sorry about that, Ranger fans. Alright. Now, let's get into the 10th episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews, the review of Episode 8 of Power Rangers Super Samurai, Kevin's Choice. Here we go. And... previously on... oh, that beautiful sound. Database Ranger continues to deal with the looming question. The only way he knows how. Going to pretend nothing ever happened. And here we see me finally starting to regularly make use of the black and white for the clips, and opening and closing with the little Power Ranger clips from the previous episode. So this is me continuing to refine how I do everything. And I'm also tweaking the white balance at this point. Unfortunately, the only jobs I seem to be qualified for are knife salesman and Christmas elf. So, still working on that. Yeah. Obviously, I was a knife salesman, as I mentioned before. 6 episodes have come and gone, and let's see what stories have developed. I was tempted. In retrospect, I'm surprised I didn't use my brief almost stint as a singing telegram for that gag. And yes, this was the introduction of the index cards for summary purposes. So, so Scott was asking, was it weird condensing all of Samurai for Year Zero, as Power Rangers was about to crunch nearly 100 episodes into 42 for Megaforce and Super Megaforce? I hadn't really thought of it in that perspective. Oh my goodness. What? It was corrected by eating sushi. Are you... Okay, let's just move on. It looks like it was a fun way to try and summarize the points that I didn't get to otherwise cover, because I wasn't covering all the episodes in between. This was one that I kind of had to think hard about which episode was going to be a good pick for this one. Because I knew I wanted to have something in between the Super Samurai premiere. Snarf. In between the Super Samurai premiere and then obviously getting caught up at the end of the season, or getting caught up with the Master's Return, and then proceeding from there with the fall episodes. So when I had to kind of skip ahead, I had to figure out, okay, which was going to be a good fit for the middle. And I'd love to see 1,000 Megazords. Hey, there's Sheree. Hey again, Chris.
Jaden attempts to recruit Antonio to figure it out, but Antonio explains that Kevin is the go-to guy for Zord combinations.
Also,
a clear reference to the first formation
this
Megazord, which Antonio wasn't present for.
Speaking of plot Kevin, points. He's off not but this one, because of the introduction of the Samurai Gigazord, it seemed appropriate. Because it focused on Serrator, it seemed appropriate. Because it brought in Decker and Dayu together, it felt appropriate. It seemed like a good one that could kind of summarize what the show was like at this stage. And, I'd also I hadn't given focus to all the different characters yet, and this was a good opportunity to give focus to Kevin, who obviously is a little bit of a wooden character, as we've discussed, as I think everybody's kind of acknowledged over time.
A terribly uncoordinated biker tumbles down in front of him. Kevin rescues him, but loses his morphin.
Oh, right, that was the plot of this episode. It's been a while. It's been so long since I've really watched Super Samurai at this point. And parts of it, I think, have kind of leaked out of my brain at this point. I know I'm Database Ranger, I know I'm the Master of Trivia and all that. But it's things do start to slip out of my brain over time. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good spot of picking things up where they left off with the Ultimate Duel and with Broken Dreams.
I remember it too. That scene stood out like a shiny jewel among...
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not that good with metaphors.
Yeah. I'm glad I decided not to clarify that metaphor.
He also heavily implies that Decker survived his battle with the Red Ranger and sends her into the woods to prove his honesty.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, Scarf is kind of like a Pudgy Pig kind of character.
As it turns out, as a morally gray anti-villain with no clear allegiance, he was contractually obligated for the second season. Or,
there we
go.
go.
Explains it, he survived
it's weird that this is the return of Decker to the show. With very little fanfare. He just kind of has been sitting around this whole time.
As well as her harmonium, and suggests they both take up his offer. Because how could you not trust this face?
We had more cutaway gags back then too. And I like that I think it was Sheree pointing out last week in the comments how the technical issues of the early episodes of the series do make sense, since in universe Database Ranger is figuring out how to produce the show. It's not all automated through the Squee yet. The Squee hasn't been introduced at this point. So there were a lot of little aspects where it makes sense that the show is still sort of figuring out how it all works.
It's not just me, right? But look out.
There's so much like awkward subtext to this episode that I feel like they were trying to just not. I feel like it's like there's a lot of subtext to Samurai that's not intentional, but who boy is it there. Obviously there's the Jaden and Antonio shipping subtext.
Hey, it's Kevin's photo
And
from Trading Places. Stealth reference to a past
Kevin
episode
definitely
and
has,
Tingle in the same second.
there are definitely ways you can read Kevin's character that I don't think too many people have really discussed,
There's a plot device in there, Scarf.
largely because they usually like to make fun of Kevin's character for the
Decker and Dayu grab
manner in
Scarf.
which the performance tends to go. But
I am not dead yet. I can dance and I can sing. I am not dead yet. I can do the Highland thing. I am not.
and again,
No need to go to bed.
there's definitely so much more use of clips and gags in these earlier episodes compared to the later episodes. Wow, I forgot how much of this song I actually
But even
used.
with Super Samurai mode, the Rangers are
I-
unable to prevent the Toonstruck
I
from
was
accomplishing their goal of allowing Scarf to
very much just like
striking him down to unlock
not
his
aware of how likely it was going to be for me to get copyright claims at that
Jake
point.
manages to slash open his arm and nab Kevin Samurai's. Their problems aren't solved, though, as Scarf's Mega Monster form is supercharged with a giant laser-blasting emoticon shield. Right on cue, Kevin arrives to support the team.
I do still sort of miss these episodes where it's really just focusing on the gag of poking fun with the show.
You know, you guys potentially have four
But
separate
I
goals
also,
at this point. Last we checked, a
there was
single
something that I
Zord
realized I
can
didn't point out
well
last
against
week,
multiple opponents.
as I've been talking
You
about
probably don't need to risk the Zord
the
if you
premise
feel
of
unsure about this.
how the show
And there are
is
ways to accomplish a risky
in
combination
universe
based
being
on
edited together by
identical
Database Ranger.
guys.
But there are also little aspects to
I'm not sure what
that
that is.
Database Ranger's
And the
psyche
Zord
that get touched on
is
here and
not so
there.
much a single combination
One of
as
which
it is a
is
Megazord with
the
an
fact
overly
that
elaborate
he
display stand. After
um
softening up Scarf with a few initial attacks,
he has an
the
active
Rangers
denial of
unleash
what's
the
happening
flashy
to
martial
him,
awesomeness with
and
certified
he
purpose. Shogun mode. Seriously, this thing makes me want to
and he
spend money I
doesn't
clearly don't have, and I have
he's
no
not
idea what
fully
it does.
aware of some of the things in his past,
Regardless,
etc.,
the
etc.
Samurai Gigazord unleashes its
Um,
super ultimate shiny cyclone spiral
And
of
so
doom
there was
to
something
destroy
from the
Scarf
previous episode
just in time.
that I meant to point out
Kevin hurries to catch the
when we were
Scorpion and
going
shows support
over
to the team.
the
But
the
in
bit with the
line
camera,
with
the
Best
origins
Left,
of the
he
camera.
recognizes that his old friend is still learning from the earlier
Also,
Rangers.
yes, I'm pretty sure this episode did get claimed. But we had that scene with the origins of, you know, how he borrowed the camera from Guy, and I was talking about that from a story perspective. But there's also a meta perspective on that, where you can see that, okay, Database is ostensibly holding the camera in that scene. He's got the thing around his neck. I was pretending as if I was holding it, because obviously we were using it to film. But the thing is, somehow that footage existed of him holding the camera, which shouldn't have existed because the camera couldn't be taking a picture, couldn't be taking the image of him holding the camera without, you know, mirrors or whatever. So that leans into the first instance of Database actually tapping into Guy's security cameras and accessing footage technopathically, which he shouldn't technically be able to do. Yeah, and that's what Sheree was just at. How did DB get Guy to agree to that camera not being filmed? Guy's got all these security cameras on hand for, you know, the surveillance that he does. And Database is able to technopathically tap into them without realizing it. And that's what we saw in the previous episode without it actually being acknowledged.
Guyu's choice made 200 years ago continues to haunt her, and Decker is once again caught up by her refusal to let go of the past. In fact,
I really actually really like this,
Super Samurai
back to this episode though.
We are all subject
I do
to
rather
fate,
like
but the choices we make
this,
dictate the lives we lead. Now, is this a great episode?
this analysis of the episode. You know, that lesson of the choices we make dictating the lives we lead. And I think that does sort of also feed into some themes of the show where small actions have larger ripples throughout the rest of the series. And, you know, even more majorly later on when we find out the
Kevin
consequences of
Samurai
Dr. K
goofy
traveling through
samurai
time.
junkie that we're used to seeing. More episodes showing this side of the character would have probably been a better fit for the actor as well,
So-
and provide a better character balance to the team dynamics by,
This-
having a character that doesn't talk. Now, if you'll excuse me, I do need to get back to my job search, but definitely.
But yeah, this was also just I wanted to have some small framing device for each episode at the time, and in this one it was the job search, which is a tiny little thing, but it does play into the next episode, which is nice. All right, so that's a wrap on episode 10. And yes, the same thing with the trick-or-treating scene. That was actually the very first instance of observing footage that was accessed through Database Ranger's technopathy. So there is an in-universe reason for every shot of the show, including the shots that seem like they're just random cutaways that shouldn't be able to exist. They still have in-universe reasons for existing. I like to joke when I describe the show to people that we have a 6-foot thick glass fourth wall, because you can see through the fourth wall the whole time, but the fourth wall is powerfully in play the whole time as well. Everything exists in universe in some way, shape, or form. Like there are certain things where it's like, okay, yes, the effects look the way they do because that's the limits of my ability to put together quality effects. But by and large, continuity errors are the fault of temporal distortions. Scenes that are shot are choices made by the squee or access through Database Ranger's technopathy. And even things like, the scenery outside the Morpostner's car doesn't move. We had that little gag about them painting the insides of their windows a few episodes later. I try to make sure that the show is as internally consistent as possible. This episode was definitely a lot lighter on story than clearly later episodes would become. Which fits, since we were looking at more of a typical episode of Super Samurai. And now, why did neither Database nor K question where the footage came from? So, Database is editing it all, putting it together as best he can. And he is in deep denial, as we've established, over the oddities of his life. If you've ever seen, those of you who've seen Westworld, might be familiar with, how the synth-organic biomechanoids of the show won't be able to directly observe things that counteract their vision of the world. So that whole, doesn't look like anything to me phrase that they use there is very much firmly in play with Database. And Dr. K is not looking closely enough at the footage and paying enough attention to the show itself, since it seems more like a distraction from her deeper explorations into how to understand the dimension that she's in. So nobody is really paying enough attention to the footage to recognize that it shouldn't exist. So there's a lot of little things I didn't really get to find ways to exposit as clearly as I would have liked, but are there sort of as little Easter eggs for people to piece together the underlying logic of the show as best they can. Also, congratulations on being only 3 credits away from graduation before actually hitting high school. Kudos. So, yeah, I know this live stream got off to a bit of a rocky start, with it being me silent while just my mouth is moving and a baby is crying. It was very Lynchian. I think that term has been going around social media lately with regards to WandaVision's release. So there was my Lynchian moment where you see a man talking but hear only a baby crying. So I think that's probably a good place to wrap things up. Jenny, you said you would love to know how what's possible with the thing I was just explaining with I think we have a good long delay on the chat at the moment. The how it is that certain characters don't question things, etc. Oh, and I will say, as far as why Database is the way that he is, why he seems to have these traits where he denies his reality, why he doesn't understand, why he doesn't remember who he is, all of that, it's still stuff left to be explored. Oh, you're wondering about the credits thing? I'm assuming that you're taking a bunch of advanced classes. And maybe, I don't know if you're doing anything over at the local community college or what have you. I personally, at my school, actually, where I'm teaching, we do a lot of college in the high school classes. So I actually teach technically college level physics to high schoolers so they get college credit towards their associate's degrees. So that's cool. Good on you taking those advanced courses. Like when I graduated high school, I basically had my freshman year of college pretty much squared away. So it's good to get that jump start, especially with, you know, how difficult it can be to get started in a lot of fields these days. And how expensive education is coming when you move on past high school. So a little bit of a divergence there, but I hope that you've enjoyed this deep dive into political ideologies, the internal meta mechanics of camera work in the series, and the subtext of Kevin's love of swimming. So I hope that this has been an enjoyable stream for everyone. I hope you guys have been enjoying these commentaries. It's hard to believe that next week we're actually doing the Christmas special, which is interesting to be revisiting in late January. But I mean, I've always been late on my Christmas shopping and my Hanukkah shopping, so it's appropriate. So all that said, I think now's a good time to wrap things up with our remaining 3 non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say it with me, chat. Love is love. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Robots are cool. And we got to see a big cool one this time, the Gigazord. That thing's massive. It's the only Megazord combination I've seen that sort of comes with its own display stand functionally. Such a weird combo. So, all that said, thank you very much, as always, for joining me this week. Keep spreading the word. I hope to have more announcements regarding the future of the channel coming up. And I'm planning to have another scripted video before the end of the month. Still working on putting it together. But until next time, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.